The death of a molecular biologist, Tom Loy, is the seventh to be connected with a Stone Age cadaver found entombed in an alpine glacier in 1991. These were strange, often accidental deaths of people who had come into close contact with the frozen corpse, dubbed Oetzi. There was talk of a curse. Could it be that the Iceman was angry at being disturbed from his 53-century-long slumber? Yesterday it was revealed that Oetzi, found in the Ötztal Alps, had claimed his seventh victim. An Australian-based scientist, Tom Loy, who carried out groundbreaking DNA analysis on the corpse. His colleagues are in shock, his family bereft. And even those who disparage curses as superstitious nonsense are experiencing, perhaps, the tiniest of shivers. Dr. Loy was 63, a Californian-born molecular biologist who joined the University of Queensland a decade ago after gaining a doctorate from the Australian National University in Canberra. He headed a team that minutely studied Oetzi, together with his prehistoric tools and weapons. Helmut and Erika Simon, a German couple who were keen mountaineers, had stumbled across the cadaver, perfectly preserved, wearing a woven grass cloak, goatskin leggings and bearskin hat. Nearby were a bow and arrows, a stone-tipped knife, an antler-skinning tool and a copper-headed axe. Oetzi had died, clearly, while out hunting. Early theories suggested he perished after an accident, alone. Dr. Loy's research soon debunked that idea. He and his team identified 4 different types of blood on Oetzi's clothes and tools, all belonging to other people. He surmised that the Iceman had been with a comrade and had died after a territorial battle with rivals. Possibly he had carried a wounded companion some distance before depositing his tools and weapons and lying down to die. Dr. Loy humanized our ancient ancestor, endowing him with a personality and tracing the last moments before his demise. The Californian won international acclaim for his work, which was the subject of several television documentaries. A fortnight ago, he was found dead at his home in Brisbane. It was only yesterday, ahead of a memorial service on Monday, that the news emerged. His brother, Gareth, who has traveled to Australia for the service, told the Australian newspaper that an autopsy had proved inconclusive. The coroner ruled out foul play, stating that he had died of natural causes or an accident, or both. Gareth Loy, however, said his brother had not been a well man. 12 years ago, just after starting work on the Oetzi project, he had been diagnosed as suffering from a hereditary condition that caused his blood to clot. Asked about the issue of a curse, Mr. Loy said that it had never been a subject of discussion between them. Academics, of course, pour scorn on such notions. Tom Loy's colleagues at the Institute for Molecular Bioscience refused to comment yesterday. But one university source said staff were deeply upset, not only by his death, but by all the speculation about a curse. The first victim of the curse, though, was Rainer Henn, 64, a forensic pathologist who picked up the cadaver with his bare hands and placed it in a body bag. Dr. Henn died in a head-on collision in 1992 while on his way to a conference where he planned to present new findings on the remains. Not long afterwards, Kurt Fritz, a mountaineer who guided Dr. Henn to the Iceman and was one of the first people to gaze upon his face, died in an avalanche. An experienced climber who knew the region intimately, he was the only member of his party to be struck by the falling rocks. Rainer Holz, 47, an Austrian journalist, exclusively filmed the removal of the body from its cocoon of ice, making an hour-long documentary that was shown around the world. A few months later he died of a brain tumor. Before Dr. Loy, the most recent victim was Konrad Spindler, an Austrian archaeologist and leading expert on the Iceman. Spindler had scoffed at suggestions of a curse, declaring, "I think it's a load of rubbish. It is all a media hype. The next thing you will be saying I will be next." He died last April, aged 66, of complications from multiple sclerosis. Dr. Loy was on the brink of completing a book about his work on Oetzi, according to colleagues. His studies had enabled him to piece together a version of events leading up to the Stone Age man's death. Oetzi was shot in the back with a flint arrow. He also had cuts on his hands, wrists and rib cage. Dr. Loy concluded from blood samples on an arrow that he might have killed 2 of his assailants and retrieved it to fire again. In an interview a few years ago, he said, "On the basis of all my examinations, Oetzi's speciality was hunting the high alpine passes for ibex, wild goat and possibly chamois, which would have taken him into boundary conditions where other people would have disputed the territory. I suspect that as he realized his life was ending, he stopped, put his gear down, stacked it neatly against a rock wall, and lay down and expired. He didn't keel over, although he was probably tired, exhausted and hurt like hell." Controversy surrounded the cadaver from the start. After the Simons found it in the melting glacier, its head and shoulder protruding from the ice, the Austrian authorities took it to Innsbruck for examination. Initial assumptions that it was a modern corpse, that of a hiker who had struck misfortune, for instance, were overturned amid high excitement. Italy, however, was determined to claim Oetzi for its own. The Italian authorities were convinced that his grave lay inside their border and, after the establishment of a boundary commission, he was repatriated over the Brenner Pass under armed guard. The Iceman now resides in the South Tyrol Museum in Bolzano, where he earns millions of dollars a year in entry fees. The Simons fought for years for a share of that money. Eventually, the Italian courts recognized them as the official finders, and they were awarded a settlement of £34,000. Mr. Simon returned to the Alps to celebrate the legal victory, but met his death in the snowy wastes. His wife has yet to receive any of the reward money. Their claim was disputed by a Slovenian actress, Magdalena Moher-Jark, and a Swiss hiker, Sandra Namath, both of whom maintained that they came across the corpse before the Simons. Ms. Namath said she became embroiled in a bitter row with the couple, during which she fell over the corpse. She was